So first of all, welcome to Winescapes, Conversations with Artists, Talk with Artists. And oh, good, you're on board. So,
Cheers.
So California time, it's wine with lunch, but our guests today, Lorayne Crawford and Alexis Chabala, are visiting us from London.
We
So we had to compromise a little bit on the time. As I mentioned, for the people that are joining us to listen to today's conversation and participate, your video and mics should be off. That allows us to not get background noise and other than us, and also to make sure we have enough bandwidth. What I would also like to do is not only thank you for joining us, but remind you that we've now gone to once a month for Winescapes with Artists, and this is the first in our monthly series. We want you to continue to support MOPA, and one way of doing this is, of course, to shop in our store, which has just gone live. And if you look at your chat, you'll have the online address to the shopmopa.org, which has our exhibition catalogs, face masks, t-shirts. So any way that you can brand yourself and be a supporter of MOPA out there in the public or online public would be great. And also tell your friends about our memberships. And that's a great opportunity for them to be invited to Winescapes and other future opportunities like this. So today, as I mentioned, we have two artists visiting us from London. So we're international, and they are also part of an exhibition project that we're going to be doing in about a year's time. Again, museums work pretty far in advance, but we're so excited about their project that we wanted to share it with you now so that you can follow along as it grows, as it develops. And today I have Lorayne Crawford, who is a curator, producer, involved with music, photography, and film. She is co-curator and co-creator and producer of the Influence Project, which did show at the Somerset House in London in 2018. And she is the designer and curator of John Daniel Afro Superhero Retrospective, which was at the 198 Contemporary Arts and Learning in Brixton, London. And also Alexis Chabala, who was born in Zambia, but grew up in France, Morocco, Belgium. But you've been in London for at least 17 years now. And you studied fine art, he studied fine art and photography in Brussels. And Alexis and Lorayne came together to collaborate on a special project. And this was the Influence Project. And the Influence Project is an ongoing photography project celebrating the impact of pioneering Black musicians. These are musicians who pushed creative, social, and political boundaries and their influence on contemporary music. So what I'd like to do is start with Lorayne. And Lorayne, if you could tell me a little bit more about your background and from your perspective, how the project came to be.
We grew up, we met around 11 years ago, and we're very connected musically. We went to live shows together, listened to music together, and ended up spending a lot of our time dissecting the music that we listened to. And it just got us thinking about what was out there and what wasn't out there, and how little was known about these artists. I have a young daughter who's very musical, and she's always playing me these artists or samples of these artists through her own music. So we decided to do something about it, and started with a few of our friends who were rare groove, acid jazz style musicians in the UK. And their links to funk, they had very deep links to funk music and soul music, American soul music, American funk music. So we made a list and we started shooting, basically. And yeah.
So I'd like to hear a little bit from Alexis also about, your perspective on the collaboration and why you thought photographing these artists would be so important, these musicians.
Yeah, I think as Lorraine said, we always listen to music together, and growing up also I listened to a lot of the artists we have shot now, and this is something that as a teenager, it kind of helped me through getting an identity as a black teenager, and like it started with funk, with R&B, hip hop, funk. So until when I was 18, that kind of helped me shape and understand, in a way, black culture. Bear in mind that before that, I spent a lot of time in France, where there was no black community. So for me, arriving in Belgium, where there was a bigger Congolese community, where the music was big, it was just big for me to kind of understand black culture and kind of embrace it. So that's kind of so when we started working on the project, for me it was very important. And what I would say is also that you can take pictures of people, you can have a commission, you can get a commission to photograph someone, but being able to photograph an artist that has had a positive impact on your life, it's a completely different experience. It's just more meaningful, and as an artist, it's something else. So that was really good. So all that kind of obviously led us to kind of push and trying to kind of reach out and trying to kind of get artists that are meaningful to me, but also to Lorraine, and build up on that, really.
So why don't we go to the slides? Because if we're talking about photography, it's always good to have photographs to work from. And okay. So can you talk about your the first art musicians and how you connected with them, that you began to photograph?
Yes. So initially, me and Lorraine, when we started the project, we wanted to shoot artists that are based in UK, acid jazz artists. That's what that was the plan. And eventually, things were very slow at the time, and Sister Sledge were in town.
Could we get the next slide, please?
So Sister Sledge were in town, and Lorraine sent them an email, and they go back to us. They wanted to do it, and we're very excited by the project. So at that point, it did kind of change our way of looking at the project, and kind of helped us to kind of see a little bit bigger than the UK scene we had originally targeted. So it kind of just opened up to other venues and other directions. So yeah, so that was definitely a time where it kind of changed a little bit the project.
Let's go to the next slide. So here you are in the studio.
Yeah, so that was after the photo shoot, yeah. So that was probably the only time we had such a big team, actually, because, that was the first. We were very excited by that shoot, and we got a hairdresser, we got makeup artists, and an assistant, and we didn't know that was probably the only time we'd be able to do that, because, time would be shorter and shorter and shorter.
So the project is now known as the Influence Project. Did it start off with that title, or is that something that that came after the project began to grow?
I think we called it the Influence Project very early. In fact, it was after our second shoot.
Next shot, please.
I was having a conversation with Femi Fem, who we just shot. Femi Fem is from the Young Disciples, and I think he was our first or second artist we shot. And Alexis and I had discussed the influence and the idea of that name, the Influence Project, and it just kind of stuck and made sense. So it was it was very early on. We decided it just made perfect sense.
We decided even before the shoot. I think by the time we got to the shoot, I think we already had the name.
Her mind.
Yeah, I think so.
So talk to me about George Clinton.
Oh, George. We need more than 5 minutes to talk about George. I mean,
well, how about within the context of the project and
yeah. So George was also very important, another one of those moments as well where we realized that, wow, we've got George Clinton, why don't we just kind of go all the way, and at that point we realized, we kind of thought, oh, we can get George Clinton, we can get anyone. And that's when we really started pushing to get any artist we can think of.
He really inspired us, didn't he? I mean, he always inspired us from previously, but for the project, he gave us, really invigorated everything, didn't he? And pushed it in a new direction as well.
So why don't, in context of his influence, where do you place him? How do you place him?
He's probably one of the most influential artists in the project. He's been one of the ways the artists are connected. There's many ways the artists are connected in the project, but probably one of the most direct ways is through sampling, which is taking a chunk of somebody else's track and using it in your track. And George's music, so George is a funk pioneer, composer, writer, producer, band leader of Parliament and Funkadelic. He's also his sampling, the samples of his music are also responsible for the sound of G-funk and the West Coast hip hop of the 90s. That's when his music had this resurgence again. And yeah, he's been sampled, I think his music's been sampled around 2,500 times. So he's one of our, from everyone, from Snoop Dogg to Madonna have sampled George Clinton. So he's got multiple connections.
I'm going to interrupt 1 second, Lorraine. Sure. You use the term sample. What does that mean, I guess, in musical terms?
Sampling is when you take, sampling began probably with the hip hop artists in the 70s. And they would cut up soul tracks and funk tracks. And, it was DJing, and they would cut these tracks up. And now they do the same thing. They cut these tracks up and you reuse them, so repurpose them for other songs. So often you'll hear a track that sounds really, really familiar, a contemporary track, but it has a very old sample in it. And it will be that old sample that hooks you in there and makes it such a great track so often.
Next slide.
So yeah, this is a shot I did of, that's George Clinton, right in the middle, and Lorraine right at the back. That's just one of those moments, great moment we have after a shoot. So we get to go and see the artist and go backstage. So that's the little good bits of the project.
The fun part is hanging outside the stage door in the rain, waiting for the artist to come. But this is the great part of the project, that we've been able to see so many of our heroes live and really up close and personal over the years.
So you had talked about the challenges of being able to actually get a number of these musicians to pose, because so many people are asking them for, opportunities, and them not necessarily realizing what the scope of the project was. But you're both very persistent.
Well, there's no other way. It's either you're persistent or you don't get anywhere. I mean,
I think at times we've lost all dignity, Alexis, haven't we?
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
I probably did some stuff that I would have never thought that I would do for an artist, you know.
so we got there.
But you know, you get that kind of rush. You're really excited. You're really excited, and you want to shoot an artist, and you want it so bad that you do things that you wouldn't normally kind of do in other circumstances.
Let's go to the next slide. So talk to me about this artist, Femi Kuti.
Femi Kuti is Fela Kuti's eldest son. So Fela Kuti, I'm not sure if you know, was an Afrobeat pioneer and probably one of the most important figures in contemporary, in modern African music. So this is his eldest. He was an activist, a musician, multi-instrumentalist and activist. And Femi is his eldest son, and both Femi and his youngest son, Shun, carry on the Afrobeat tradition. So that's Femi Kuti.
I want to talk about a technical aspect here with Alexis. So we've seen black and white and we've seen color. So you're shooting digitally, and and so you're capturing everything in color. What are some of the reasons, or what goes through your head when you decide it's going to be color or it's going to be a black and white image?
When I shoot an artist, what I'm shooting at, I don't really know. That's the decision I make way after that when I start editing. Mm-hmm. You know, I shoot raw images, which is in fact color images, and then usually I try to get to make the most out of the situation I'm in. So I try to kind of help myself to, by shooting raw and by kind of keeping all the information in the file, mm-hmm. that allow me to turn the image into pretty much not whatever I want, but kind of, decides to make most of the decision when I'm editing.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to the next slide.
So yeah, this is me trying to direct a photo shoot. So this was probably the biggest group. I can't remember how many there were, 20 plus or something, and the studio wasn't really massive. So it's always tricky when you're photographing a group of people, because to try to kind of get them to be on the same, to give them the same energy is very difficult. Some are you can tell some don't really want to do it. Some are really into it. Some are serious. Some are not serious. So to try to kind of direct everybody can be really challenging. So this was after, I think, few attempts, and I was trying to kind of lift them up, and then kind of trying to kind of give them something that, they hadn't done to that point,
Okay, let's go on to the next.
So this is KRS-One, and he was the first hip hop artist we shot. At that point, we hadn't shot any hip hop artist. He was the first one. And he is a very important figure in hip hop. So we knew that by getting KRS-One and the hip hop artist that follows, Chuck D, by getting both, we would put the bar pretty high, because both artists are very respected. They have been very influential in hip hop. They even now they always kind of names when people talk about the top 10 hip hop artists of all time.
Lorraine, you wanted to add something?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I was just going to say he popularized the idea that hip hop is a culture, and KRS-One also, he's believed to have written the most rhymes in rap, and he lectures today in universities across America, teaching hip hop.
Great. Who would have thought when hip hop came out, they would be teaching it in the university? So times change. Let's go to the next slide.
So yeah, so this is Chuck D from Public Enemy. And again, is one of those hip hop artists who's had such a big influence socially and musically, and even on a personal level, had a big influence. That was just the time where I moved from, I think Morocco at the time. I moved to France, and that was, not to Belgium, and that was the first time I kind of, was I was in contact with a big Black community, and Public Enemy. My friend were listening to Public Enemy, and hip hop was getting big, and that definitely helped us. Like songs like "Fight the Power" helped us, get that kind of identity, Black proud and Black identity. Yeah.
So it was more than music. It was really your identity, your kind of understanding your new culture, where,
Yeah.
being a person of color in Europe.
Yeah, that's right.
So do you think that it's your team together that really, I think, is an important aspect of this project? Because Lorraine, you're not a person of color, but you know music, you have a passion, you have connections. And Alexis, this is very much a part of your cultural identity growing up as, as a young man of color. Did you find that also gave you an entree into some of these photo shoots? Or did it
I
ever?
don't think so. I don't think so, because they don't know who they're talking to.
Yeah.
They don't know who they're talking to. They're talking to some emails, so they've never had any experience. And I think that doesn't change anything. It hasn't had any, effect on that level. It didn't open more doors, or because, you're talking about through people, through managers. So it's just two unknown people, asking for something.
Wishing their luck.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next.
Can I just mention that Chuck D is one of the most sampled artists in the world. He's, I think, top 3. He's been sampled over 3,000 times. So he's had a huge impact. But yeah, Pee Wee Ellis.
Great.
So another one who's had a big impact. So, indirectly, not as directly as Chuck D, but he was, maybe Lorraine would be more kind of.
Pee Wee Ellis was James Brown's band leader from 1965 to 1969, and he co-wrote 26 tracks with James Brown, including Cold Sweat, which was considered the first funk track. And along with that, Say It Loud and Black and Proud, which was a song that really changed, spoke for a generation of people who were, it was released in 1969, I think. So social conditions at the time. He's been sampled again. Pee Wee's been sampled by many of our artists, and there's huge connections throughout the project. But as Alexis says, he's probably lesser known because he was James Brown's band leader, and although he performs with his own band now.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
So this is Fantastic Negrito, who is a kind of more, is contemporary. And but the music is more blues. So the sound of his music is more old school, but even though it's very contemporary, just he won last year or the year before 2 Grammys, and is very political as well, and he is probably the one of the few artists directly linked to blues in a project. And then, yeah, so here, speaking about the photograph, he started very late, and you can see his scarf. He had to stop music because he got into a car accident. That kind of
Put him in a coma. He was in a coma.
Living in a coma, and he stopped everything. He stopped doing music, and then 5 years ago, 6 years ago,
I think he calls this his third life after that accident, because he's been in the industry for a long time,
and
but
nothing ever happened.
only in the last sort of 2015, I think.
Yeah, for the next 5 years, he managed to get 2 Grammys and be able to work, you know, as a musician.
So let's go on to the next slide.
So this is Leon Ware, another very important artist, at least for us. He wrote one of my favorite album of all time, I Want You by Marvin Gaye. And that's something not many people know about the album, I Want You, that it was written by Leon Ware. And then, yeah, so we photographed him in LA. And he wasn't well when we photographed him. So we were in constant communication with his wife, and that's when just he kind of was feeling better. So we took that opportunity to go to shoot him, and then unfortunately, not long after that, he passed away.
I think this is a good point to talk about the stylistic approaches that you're taking. What I like about this project is that you're not just setting one approach to taking a portrait. That you're, especially since at this point, I think you said there's about 140 in the project, and you're continuing. The fact that you are going between black and white and color, that you're you know, I like kind of the obstruction in this particular photograph. To me, it speaks to his age and his end of life approach. You know, that he's so close, and so it's nice to see. And so, are you, as the photographer, responding to each individual and each situation and each setting you're in?
I think, yeah, it's more responding to a situation I'm in.
Nothing is planned.
You know, nothing is planned because you never know what you're gonna expect. So it's almost starting from scratch every time, and almost trying to kind of, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna get. I may as well not plan anything, and trying to use the best out of, you know, the situation I'm gonna be in, you know. So sometimes it can be backstage, sometimes it can be at someone's house, sometimes it can be. So right from the start, I decided I'm not gonna try to stick to one style, and I'm just gonna try to kind of to get the best out of the situation I'm gonna be in. And so that's the reason why I suppose when you know, the exhibition's got so many different, you know, I wouldn't say style, but, you know, there's no a single way. I mean, I'm not trying to stick to one thing.
You don't have a formula for, you know, for what
the influence project.
Yeah. which speaks to them as artists and to their music, you know, that there may be connections, but, you know, that they're each unique, they're each individuals. And so why don't we go on to the next?
Yeah, so Booker T. Jones and his son, Ted, that was shot at my studio. They came to the studio. That's again, we had a little bit of time, and I wanted to do something with his son because he's also a musician. So here it was more kind of, that was the only few times where I had some kind of loose concept where I wanted to create a link between the old and new generation, because his son is also a musician. So, so yeah, that's what pretty much the only time really. And even though I had that concept, everything that happens on the shoot is just very much kind of unpredictable. You know, it's just something where you don't know what you're gonna get. So this wasn't kind of planned to have his son right like that. So it was just a moment.
So is this a case where it took you several years to get him into the studio, the artist, to agree to a portrait?
That's that's one of those. Yeah, I think we emailed him a few times, and because he comes to London every year, between for Christmas and January, the first, you know, New Year's Eve, and every year we kind of emailed him the first year, and then the second year, and I ended up buying a ticket and go to his gig, to his concert. And then when he was signing, after the concert, when he was signing the CDs, I went to talk to him and his wife, and they finally decided, agreed to kind of do it the following year. so we had to wait another 12 months before we could do it. You know.
Great. Let's go on to the next slide.
So yeah, that's Anderson .Paak. So Anderson .Paak is one of those artists that when we shot him, I didn't know much about him. I think Lorraine had kind of, Lorraine has spotted him, and it wasn't as big as he is now, but Lorraine kind of, she's really good at spotting the next big generation of icons. So she spotted him. And then we ended up shooting him, and I didn't know him that well. But since then, myself, I've just grown up to really love his stuff and really, really respect him as an artist. You know, he's just a very talented artist, you know, and I'm really glad we got that portrait.
Yeah, it's a great portrait. I think this is, if I have to pick a favorite, this is among my favorites. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, the artist, you should check him out too. He's just incredible.
Incredible live, just incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
So yeah, another one of those artists, Bill Withers, and his wife, and Marcia and Corey, his daughter. And that was a very weird photo shoot, kind of spooky.
The photo shoot that almost didn't happen, right?
The shoot that almost didn't happen after I don't know how many years of planning. But yeah, they were really nice in the end, because I think they felt sorry for us. You know, on the day of the shoot, everything went wrong. You know, the camera broke, the light broke. And you know, they just felt sorry, and then they kind of rescheduled before me coming back to London, and then yeah, so yeah, it happened, and you know, they were great, you know.
And you had the true LA experience where you had to go across LA to pick up a replacement camera, you know, and then deal with the traffic coming back.
Trying to find a place.
Yeah.
To go and get a camera, and then I had, you know, following, you know, I had my iPhone, you know, and trying to kind of follow the sat nav, and then suddenly my iPhone died because of the heat of the sun. So I had to kind of come out of the motorway, wait until, you know, the phone cooled down, and then start again. But then by the time I get to the camera shop, you know, 2 hours has gone by, and they had to go. So I never got to shoot them that day. So fortunately, they were nice to reschedule.
And we had been we'd been contacting them for around 3 or 4 years. So this was one of the most important shoots of the project. And this happened, but thankfully they were amazing. And yeah, we got the portrait.
Well, good. Let's go on to the next slide.
So this is Neil. This is a British artist here in UK, really talented, and she was nominated for Grammy, right, Lorraine?
Yeah. She's in fact she was a bit of a late starter as well. She describes her sound as wonky funk, and is very much influenced by the George Clinton, Prince, and Erykah Badu. Mm-hmm. And yeah, she just, I think it was last year, 2019, so from 2014, 2015, she's come a long way and just received her first Grammy nomination last year. So yeah, she's great now and amazing live as well. Fantastic energy.
And Alexis, I have a question from the audience. What camera and lenses do you typically use, and do you ever use film?
I only have one zoom on my camera, which is a 2470 2.8, and that's the only lens I've been using for the past 10 years. You know, I don't have any other lens, and I'm just trying to kind of what's the word? Make my life easy. So stopping, change the light, a lot of lenses. Now I'd like to kind of work as quick as possible and trying to kind of avoid every distraction, especially when it comes to equipment, lighting. I try to kind of, you know, I'm used to it, so I can work very fast and I know what I'm doing in the sense that it doesn't take me much time, but I try to simplify everything. So Canon, by the way, so Canon EOS 5 Mark, whatever, 2, I think, and yeah, which is an old camera, really.
Let's go on to the next slide.
So yeah, that's another challenging shoot because there were so many of them. And I was just trying to get, you know, because I knew it was Sun Ra, and I knew Sun Ra in terms of energy, what Sun Ra represents in terms of energy. I wanted to kind of, you know, kind of show that energy in the image. And so yeah, so I was kind of playing around and moved them around, you know, trying with one person at the front, another person at the front, and kind of trying to kind of get try different, you know, composition. And yeah, so that was just when she was at the front of everybody else. And then I kind of kept asking it to do it again and again and again. And yeah, and then I got that picture, you know, where she's really kind of live and you know, full action.
So when Sun Ra was alive and the group was, you know, in their early days, they were very original in their approach. What is their influence, and how are they influencers within the scheme of this project and this?
Well, Sun Ra was an was a jazz composer, band leader, and Afro-futurist pioneer. His music, I suppose George Clinton, if you look to George Clinton and his style of music, you can really see some of the influence there with Sun Ra.
But also that kind of freedom as well when playing. I think George Clinton, Sun Ra was, you know, that freedom they have.
Science fiction as well, the musical freedom, the free jazz, avant-garde jazz. Sun Ra was a pioneer of the mini moog and introduced keyboards into jazz, really, this freestyle playing. And I mean, Flying Lotus cites Sun Ra as an influence, as does Solange, and many others. So they have quite a far-reaching and yeah, unusual reach, Sun Ra. You know, not very traditional jazz, but full of energy and free expression, for sure.
Next slide.
For Erykah Badu.
Wow.
So we had to go to Dublin to shoot this. And again, I think I didn't know anything. I think Lorraine had kept it quiet.
Just never know if things are going to happen or not.
And at the last minute, she said, "Oh, we're going to Dublin." You know, I'm like, "Wow, who?" And what's funny is I'd done an interview like a year before that, and they asked me the question, who are the artists you would like to shoot the most? You know, and she was one of them. And, you know, I suppose that's the reason why she hid that for me. But yeah, that was great for me too, you know, to be able to shoot that just, you know, a year after that. That was good.
And how would you describe her music?
She fuses jazz, blues, hip hop, R&B, everything together, and she's made a huge impact. Redefining R&B. She's had a
kind of classified neo soul, isn't it?
Neo soul, yeah. In fact, we have a few neo soul.
Neo soul was really big, and she's probably one of the artists that defined the mood.
Neo soul artists, yeah.
Lorraine, Maxwell, and other few artists that defined the era of neo soul.
Yeah, and she's also been one of probably the most innovative and creative artists during the COVID pandemic. I don't know if you've seen any of her quarantine series. And she did. She also did a versus battle with Jill Scott, who's another heroine of ours. And they had requests from everybody, including I think Michelle Obama was sending requests to them to play songs. So yeah, so creative, Erykah Badu, an artist in every respect.
Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, that's Lauryn Hill. Another neo soul hip hop artist, one of the, you know, I would say most influential female hip hop artists, right?
Yeah.
You say that, Lorraine?
I was just going to say, her again, you know, the neo soul, hip hop connections and reggae as well.
So in a group, she was also in the Fuji, which is also a big influence hip hop group from the 90s.
But
so
her album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, which was 98, I think, received the first hip hop album. It was the first hip hop album to receive album of the Grammy for Album of the Year award. That was in 99, I think. So yeah, she received 10 nominations and 5 Grammys for it, and I think that was a first for women as well. 5 Grammy nominations and 5 Grammy wins in one night, in one album. So yeah, the album is amazing and is still hugely influential. And she's lots of connections in her project.
So next slide.
Martha Reeve and the Vandella.
Said Martha and the Vandellas.
So
really, I was just going to say, she epitomizes that Motown sound, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Songs like Dancing in the Street, Heat Wave, Nowhere to Run, Jimmy Mack. Yeah, she's highly influential in the project and well connected. Sorry, Alexis.
No, that's all. You know.
And we had a great shoot with her as well, and went to her show in the evening afterwards, didn't we? And just couldn't believe her energy, back to back.
So much energy, yeah. She's incredible.
The whole place, she was amazing.
Yeah.
So since this is an ongoing project, the exhibition at Somerset House, what led to having an exhibition at that time of the work that you have?
What led to sending you know, we knew from very early on. We'd sort of set our sights on Somerset House, hadn't we? That was where we were going to show, and we didn't look anywhere else. So we were, you know, because of the music connection as well. They have the summer series. So when we had our exhibition there, some of our artists came to play, and we had all these wonderful connections with the artists playing in the summer in the courtyard and then coming into the exhibition. So yeah, that was definitely our
next slide.
Angie Stone, another big one. And that's if you haven't noticed that the last few were women.
Yes, I have
So,
noticed.
So yeah, so after Somerset House, I think we realized that we had an imbalance between men and women. And then we realized that's when we decided to really work on trying to get more women. And, you know, whether it's Martha or Angie, you know, it's one of those pioneer that are so important in music. And Keystone, as probably, you know, we did talk about it. She had hits in the 80s, 90s, no, 70s, 80s, 90s. Notice, you know, it's incredible. Her career spans for so many years, and she's still very much relevant today. So, and nobody kind of really know that about or realize that about Angie Stone, that she's been going for so many years now. You know,
Right.
and she also helped to write one of the most influential album with D'Angelo. So, so yeah, she's incredible.
So who's on your list to next to photograph, or who's on your wish list?
So many, so many. God, and so many are also gone. You know,
Prince. Oh,
Prince is. You know, we definitely wanted Prince, and I mean, there's so many. I mean,
yeah.
Can you name any?
Well, Sly Stone would be
Sly
one.
Stone.
Yeah, in fact, we've been trying with Sly for a few years, so we're still hopeful that might happen.
Shaka Khan.
Shaka Khan as well. We've been trying with Shaka Khan. Yeah. Nearly there, didn't happen. Nearly there, didn't happen. So yeah.
There's so many.
Jill Scott,
Jill Scott,
Andre 3000. Yeah, there's a huge list.
Let's go to the next slide.
Oh.
So this is an installation shot, and can you talk a little bit about the project as it exists there, and then you know, the how you're envisioning it here at MOPA?
Okay. So this was
our second
a MAC, and MAC was slightly different from Somerset House. The whole setting is very different. The building is different, and the gallery itself is very different. MAC is definitely the type of gallery where it's just a square box, and you know, and we were able to kind of had some more freedom because we had more wall space in a way to kind of, you know, do what, you know, we had in mind, you know. Somerset House, I think, was a little bit, we were more restricted because you've got these big windows. It's a more kind of classical building. And, you know, so in a way, you're very much limited to, you don't have so much wall space, and you're very much limited to what you can do. So here, for the first time, we wanted to kind of show all the artists we had shot up to that point. And we were just trying to kind of figure out how could we do that, because 140 artists, it takes space. And even though MAC was big, it wasn't big enough in a sense to kind of be able to show every artist in a, you know, 40 by 60 inch, you know, size image. So we were just trying to figure out how we could do that. And we came up with the idea of doing a grids and showcasing every artist. And, you know, and then, yeah, so that's the solution we kind of come up to. And so obviously the project is not only the images, it's also all the other elements to it. You know, Lorraine has, you know, created soundtracks. She's also kind of promoting partners as well in the exhibition, you know, like Who Sampled and Music Map, that are also very important and that kind of adds to the whole project.
What do you mean by music map, Lorraine?
Well, we have Who Sampled and Music Map. Music Map was a recent addition we thought would be great to show, to help kids especially visualize all the different styles of music. So it's it was made by this a Belgian architect who designed all these layers of different genres of music and connected them all together in this one visual map. So it's absolutely fascinating, really beautiful and very detailed, and great to be able to look and see how things are connected. Whereas Who Sampled has been our partner from day one. I have to be honest, I don't think we could have done all this without Who Sampled. They, you know, you just have to type the two names in that you want to find connections to into this software, and it brings up the connections. Yeah, so it's just been a brilliant tool.
And you did a film as well, right?
We also made a film, yeah, which was we made just before Somerset House. We'd always planned to make a film, but Somerset House hurried us along, and we shot for I don't know, about 4 or 5 months leading up to the opening of the exhibition. And, you know, really privileged to interview some of our incredible artists. They all came back. A few of them came back again, and we interviewed them for the film, and heard the stories from them, because that's really what this was all about, is to hear their voices and their, you know, their expressions. So yeah, that's what the project's about. So it was great to be able to make the film.
Do we have another slide?
I think that's it.
Okay.
I remember.
So first of all, I want to thank you both for your time, but also for this amazing project that you can tell it's very much a part of your heart and soul, that your talents work really well together. And we are thrilled that we will be the first venue in the United States for the Influence Project. And we are hoping that you'll be adding many more images to the project, because the idea of it continuing to grow, I think, is an important one. And the interactivity that's a part of it, again, I think really enhances that experience. So, you know, thank you for that. And I have a few questions here that I would like to share with you. How do you go about handling difficult clients that have big egos?
Thankfully, there's not too many of them in funk, is there? We haven't really come across many, maybe one or two, but we're not allowed to say anything, Alexis. So
yeah, I think personally, it is a question of just kind of talking and kind of get to a level where, you know, it's just two people talking and trying to get you know, somewhere. And, you know, I think we haven't had many a bad experience, because, you know, I think when you kind of talk to people as just people and nothing else, than not celebrities or no big artists, but just kind of people, you know, exchanging or ideas and talking about things that might have in common. You know, I think it changes the whole kind of ego and big, and, you know, it never, I'm not saying it never happens, but, you know, we've had very little bad experience, you know.
Our shoots tend to be really relaxed, really, you know, there's always music, there's always chat, and we really chilled on our shoots, aren't we? And I think that comes across in the, you know, hopefully comes across in the pictures. You know, we know, we've, you know, got to know a lot of these artists over the years, wearing them down. And so by the time they get to us, they feel very sorry for us. And
that's a good technique. I like that. I have some more questions. from Karen. I'm always surprised at how influential the blues, R&B, and soul have been in Great Britain. Do you have an explanation for that?
Musical imports, American music coming into Britain, you know, African American music. There's genres in Britain have sprung from Black music.
And what's funny to learn is like a lot of musicians in UK, you know, they've always, even musicians you wouldn't think they're into that kind of music, even like people like Boy George, you know, when you hear them talk, they say like, that soul music has had a big influence on them. And that's something I would have never associated in the beginning. But yeah, it's influenced a lot of artists here in UK.
Do you think some of it is because Britain does have such a caste system? They may not speak of it so much, but there's definitely seems to be, you know, upper class, middle class, lower class, and that some of this music kind of speaks to the issues and problems that, you know, are universal, you know, about poverty and lack of jobs, or
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we have a mixed society in Britain as well. It's, you know, and the music and the lyrics and throughout the project, yeah, I definitely think speak volumes and translate across, you know, that's the beauty of music, isn't it? It's a universal language. And, you know, we've been big fans of American music here for a long time. You know, my earliest memories are Stevie Wonders. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that genres or styles like acid jazz sprung up and were directly from, you know, American soul and funk music. So, yeah.
So I have a question from John Mullen. Alexis, what photographer most influences you?
Loads. Richard Avedon, you know, Irving Payne,
Malik,
and then African. So I would say, you know, I learned photography with all these big masters, but as I went along, I started kind of discovering like African photographers as well, like Malik Sidibe and Seydou Keita. But I've also been very much influenced by just fashion photography as well in general. So I'm always constantly influenced by new artists as well. So my taste keeps almost changing and, you know, maybe changing, but evolving. And, you know, but I would say the first photographer that would come to my mind would be Avedon, Irving Payne, you know, Malik Sidibe, all these big photographers.
Great. So do you have anything else you want to add, or, you know, basically we're very excited to have you be at the Museum of Photographic Arts, and I am looking forward to the journey of working together with you and adding all that we can. And one more question, the image of Anderson .Paak was Photoshop, and or was that real red makeup?
It was Photoshop, and it wasn't something planned neither. It was just like one of those moments where, you know, you're being creating and you just say, well, why not? You know, and I think, you know, initially it wasn't even meant to kind of end up as the final images in the exhibition. But what happened is I was playing around, and one thing led to another. I saw the reaction of people, and then it ended up being the final shot.
So do you do much of that kind of photoshopping?
Yeah, I'm kind of Photoshop in the sense that, you know, and also that also kind of changed throughout the years. You know, when Photoshop came out, you know, came out, you know, everybody, you know, was like retouching so heavily. And then that kind of has faded away, you know, in a sense. But I think if I look at my retouching, it's always been kind of trying to kind of recreate that kind of filmy kind of, you know, look,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because I started photography, not digitally, but analog photography, just on shooting and film. That's how I started photography. So, you know, when digital came along, and I had to kind of change everything. But in my head, I always had that kind of aesthetic that I was always trying to recreate.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I've always tried to kind of, you know, be a little bit more subtle in my retouching. But, you know, sometimes you want to kind of push a little bit and, you know, experiment a little. And so yeah.
Well, great. I'm going to end it here. And I also want to say, if you look on the sidebar of the chats, you can go to a link that will take you to a full virtual tour of the Influence Project and a soundtrack as well. So you get a wonderful preview and you get the sound of the music as well. So everyone, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of Winescapes with Artists today. And I raise my glass and
Thank you.
A good rest of your day. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Lorraine, and to everybody that joined us.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.